I want to start with this quite powerful condemnation by Peter Dutton, the fierce condemnation of the government over the decision to float the idea, not to recognise, but float the idea of recognising the state of Palestine before an end to any negotiated settlement. He has said that the Foreign Minister's damaged Australia's international reputation. Isn't she only articulating a similar message to what the British Foreign Secretary David Cameron said in February?
Well, Kieran, great to be with you, and I completely back Peter Dutton's assessment of the Foreign Affairs Minister's reckless speech at ANU 2 nights ago. I mean, what Penny Wong has done is essentially given tacit approval to a terrorist organisation, a listed terrorist organisation in this country, Hamas. She's basically saying that they're going to give the nod to a state of Palestine before the hostages are returned, before Hamas has laid down and surrendered to the IDF. And I just think that's an appalling situation.
Recognise it yet?
We need to be... Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in a situation... But Kieran, we're in a situation where Penny Wong is saying Hamas has no future in Gaza within a future Palestinian state, and yet she's also standing against the IDF going into Rafah to get rid of the 4 to 6 battalions of Hamas that still remain. So you can't have it both ways, Penny. And for me, this is more about protecting the left flank of the Labor Party, putting politics before principle here at home, and making sure that Western Sydney and the growing Greens vote around this particular issue come back to Labor, rather than and being prepared to trash our international reputation and old friends on the way through.
Peter Dutton also blaming the Prime Minister for enabling anti-Semitism to rise in this country in recent months. Is that over-egging it, given the intensity of the coverage and the crisis we've been reporting on for weeks now?
Yeah, well, Kieran, I think there's been a big shift in policing in this country from upholding the law to keeping the peace. And we saw that at the Opera House post-October the 6th, 6 months ago. And that has continued. And I think it puts our Jewish Australian community at risk, and it sends the wrong message to a whole raft of Australians that think it's somehow okay to chant genocidal phrases when you're in a march for peace. Well, it's not. I mean, let's not forget the situation we're in here. This was the largest loss of Jewish life on the globe in a single day since the Holocaust. That's what started this. So every civilian death as part of this war, Australian, Palestinian, Israeli or otherwise, has to be put firmly at the feet of Hamas. And because a war situation means, that innocent civilians are obviously captured within that. So I do think there's been a failure.
Do you blame the Prime Minister for that?
Police.
That's state police.
Well, at the end of the day, the signals being given by our political leaders matter. And the signals being given by this Prime Minister, by this Foreign Affairs Minister, have been flaccid when it comes to actually standing up for our Jewish community and standing against anti-Semitism. We can't mention anti-Semitism without also mentioning Islamophobia. That's how the Prime Minister has been conducting the public discussion in this country. And the fact is, anti-Semitism is on the rise exponentially in a way that Islamophobia hasn't been in the wake of this conflict.
What do you put that down? When you make that statement, how do you come to that conclusion that Islamophobia hasn't risen at the same rate, given, as we said, as you and I have both agreed on, the intensity of this crisis has led to enormous internal tensions and really straining the fabric of our own society. How can you say that Islamophobia isn't rising at the same rate?
Well, I can go on the streets of our major capital cities over the last 6 months And there are Australians chanting genocidal phrases that I'm not going to repeat on this program. Half of them, I don't believe, actually know the context behind those phrases. But to our Jewish community, they only can hear one thing when those types of phrases are chanted by thousands and thousands and thousands of Australians. And I think it is a very sad indictment of this beautiful multicultural country of ours that is, this conflict is dividing us. And I speak to many, many Australians from all walks of life who can't recognise the country that we are because we're, if you like, importing that that conflict onto our suburban streets here, particularly in our major capitals.
We're almost out of time. I do quickly want to get your thoughts, if you can, on the Future Made in Australia plan. That's something likely to resonate, isn't it? Bringing manufacturing back onshore, then Nats would support that sort of initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. We love manufacturing jobs, not just in the regions, but in our suburbs as well. And the tripling of manufacturing going under in the last 2 years, thanks to the Labor government, is two things. It is the skyrocketing energy prices. You need cheap, reliable energy to be an advanced manufacturer in this country. And under Labor, that's gone in the wrong direction. It's going to continue to do that. And our anti-competitive industrial relations changes. So if we want a more productive and competitive economy, we need to actually be getting the cost of living and inflation under control and energy prices. And what in the leaked aspects of the Prime Minister's speech that he's about to deliver, he's talking about it's not the old protectionism, it's the new competitive. I mean, what is this guy? This is like some first-year poli-sci essay that's trying to reimagine capitalism, which has brought so much wealth and prosperity and lifted people out of poverty, not only in our own country, but around the world. The IMF themselves have really come out against this global movement, and the Prime Minister's move seems to be in direct contrast to the International Monetary Fund's recommendation that governments don't pursue this type of intervention.